So you want to build your own canvas? Well, you've come to the right address. I will show you how to build one. Cheap and foolproof. But before we delve into it, let's get through a list together of all the items that we need to get started. If you missed something out, there will be a summary right after, and everything will be copied down below in the video description. Alright, you need a hammer, a staple gun, stretcher bars, pliers, a screwdriver, thin cardboard, a square, scissors, a pencil, canvas. And here it depends on your preferences. They all come with different qualities. I would suggest getting an unprimed canvas roll with 280 gram per square meter, or around 10 Oz. There are cheaper options out there that only have 150 gram per square meter. I wouldn't suggest using them. They are not bad per se, but they can tear more easily when you prime them, so don't get a headache yet if you bought one, or if you don't know what you have right now. It will work out. Alright. You will also need a brush and something big enough where you can mix your primer in. Almost forgot it. You need house paint. And yes, you heard right. House paint or exterior paint. Whatever you want to call it. I'm using a non-glossy one that currently goes for about 24 euros. You don't need to buy an expensive one for priming a canvas. For your convenience, here's everything again in 2 pictures. No need to memorize it or write it down. You will find everything in the video description. Alright, let's jump into it. Take your stretcher bars and put them together. This should be easy, but if necessary, give them a little push with your fist or hammer. Now comes the annoying part, making sure that we have a 90-degree angle on each corner. So bring patience. You have to use your square for this one to get the frame in the right angle. Sometimes a small bump with a hammer or your fist can move it into the right direction. It doesn't have to be super precise. With a small canvas like this one, a small shift won't be noticed. But if you have a bigger canvas, a small shift will absolutely jump into your eyes and make it look wonky. So being too sloppy here might hurt your final result. So make sure that it is somewhat a 90-degree angle, but don't stress yourself, it is always a back and forth here. For our next step, you can put down your frame for a second. This one can be called an artist life hack. We need our cardboard and scissors here. Take your cardboard and either cut it or rip it into triangles. They don't need to be a particular size, but don't make them the size of the pyramids. Alright, once we have our 4 smallish triangles, we can put them on the back of our frame and staple them on it. Put them on each corner. You might be wondering now, why am I doing this? The benefit of stapling them to the back is that it fixates your frame for more or less forever. You can easily move it around now, without having to worry that it doesn't stay in square. If you accidentally hit the corner, you don't have to start from square one. Enough with squares and triangles for now. Let's head over to our next step. Alright, it's time for us to get a slice from our canvas roll. Spread the canvas, lay down your frame gently and get your pencil ready. Put another stretcher bar next to it and leave a thumb space between the bar and your frame. You will use it as a ruler. Draw a line and cut it. Once we have done that, we can move over to our next step. We are going to attach the frame to our cut canvas now. Put the frame face down on your canvas. That means that the side with the rounded wood has to be on the canvas. In our next step, we're going to staple it all together. Before you start, you have to keep a couple of things in the back of your head. For one, when you staple your canvas, you have to work parallel. When stapling the left side, you staple the right side next, or up and then down, so to say. We also start in the middle of each side. And then we go towards a corner. If you have a larger canvas, it is not necessary to shoot 100 clips into it. You can leave a bit space between each clip of about 4 to 5 fingers. You will get a hang of it. When attaching the canvas to our frame, it is important that you always pull the canvas slightly, a bit firm, but not too much, but also not too loose. If you can use it as a drum or bongo, it is already too much. Mistakes happen, don't worry. If it is as simple as getting a clip out, you can do it with a screwdriver and pliers. It's time for our corners now. Simply squeeze it together, push the lower part with your thumb into one direction and fold it over. You can push and pull it a bit, make it more firm. Now staple it and boom! Your corner is set. I would suggest that when you're facing the canvas, that you let your folded corners go into 2 directions. All corners should either go up and down or left and right. If you know whether your canvas is going to be horizontal or upright, you can plan in advance. But it's not a big deal if you haven't decided yet. Just make sure that they are parallel. Now this is where the magic happens. We are going to mix our primer and apply it in the following step. You will need house paint, a cup of water and a brush. For mixing a primer, there's no set in stone formula for it. Try to get a consistency similar to milk, maybe a bit thicker, something like yogurt. After a couple of tries, you will get a feel for how many scoops of paint and water you need for the mixture. Something that you should know for the longevity of your house paint, because that bucket will stick around for longer. Once you are mixing house paint with water together, don't go back into the bucket with the same brush. Otherwise, it might turn the paint over and it could get moldy. You would have to throw the entire bucket away in that case. So take a different brush or anything if you need another scoop. If anything goes wrong, don't worry, I'll tell you later how to fix it. Now the fun part starts, applying the primer. I wish I didn't misplace my other brush, because usually I take a different one. But anyway, make sure that you're not wearing your best jeans, because this is going to get messy. Alright, start with a circle in the middle of your canvas. Just a couple of brush strokes. It doesn't need to look good. Doing a circle in the middle, the canvas will tighten from all sides evenly. And that's the key word. Everything needs to be balanced out when priming a canvas. From here on, we start applying paint by going from left to right. When everything is covered, you can go up and down with your brush, then left and right again, and up and down again. Think of it as applying one layer after another in an X or plus shape. And that's usually it. In most cases, I do 4 cycles. The canvas doesn't need to be solid white. The more primer you apply, the more your canvas will contract together. And if you have a massive canvas, the frame does not only bend, but can also burst in half. It's usually more of a problem if you have a gigantic canvas. I've seen it happen once. Super annoying, but it can be fixed. I will tell you later, so don't get a headache yet. In the case that you apply too much or too little primer, I will tell you at the end of the video how to fix it. By the way, don't forget to swipe off the dripping paints on the side. Just use your hand. And that's usually it for the priming part. Time to put the brush down for a moment. Alright, drying. There's not much we can do other than watch our paint dry. Well, maybe there are things we can do to speed it up. The idea is to elevate your canvas from the ground. Establishing airflow might be a bit far-fetched, but the trick is to let air get below it. If you don't have some leftover stretcher bars, you could also take coffee cups or anything else. If you don't have space to have multiple canvas dry in the open, you can also lean them against the wall. Usually I let them dry overnight. Oh, almost forgot it. You can clean your brush with water and soap now. Now this is how your future canvas might look like. Beautiful, isn't it? Whoa! Just to show you the sides of my canvas, I tend to not prime them, but that's a personal preference. If this video helped you to build a canvas, I would appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. Alright, time for some general tips that will help you here and there. If you're going for a bigger canvas, you will need to use additional stretcher bars in the center, that plus shape. These support your frame when it gets primed and are absolutely necessary past a certain size. Now you might be wondering now, when do you need these stretcher bars in the middle of your frame? I usually add them when my canvas gets bigger than 1 meter or 40 inches, depending on what measure unit you are using. Now when it comes to priming larger canvas, and you have the cross in the middle, you should put a piece of cardboard in between your cross and your canvas. The benefit for having a piece of cardboard there is that you won't hit the cross with your brush. It would leave an imprint of it if you don't use cardboard. Usually it doesn't shine through when you paint, but in the case that you paint in very thin layers, it might. But with cardboard between your stretcher bars and the canvas, you simply roll over it. General tip number 2. The next thing that might be annoying to some people are folding lines. You can see one on the lower half here. If your canvas has a strong folding line that goes across from left to right and you want it gone, you have to get the canvas wet before priming. Once it's primed, it's there forever. So in order to make them go away, is to make the canvas wet before priming. Just apply water, let it dry, and the folding line is gone. But I usually don't care, as you can see here. That line isn't much visible once you paint it over it. Unless maybe, again, if you paint in super thin layers. But otherwise, not much of a problem. Alright, let's talk about a couple of things that can go wrong here. Things like you might have applied too little primer and now your canvas is saggy. Here you have 2 options to recover. Turn your canvas around and apply water to it. The canvas will contract together again. If that didn't help, you could also apply more primer to the back of the canvas. Often that should be enough for the canvas to tighten up again. Bad case scenario 2. If you apply too much primer, your canvas can contract so hard together that it breaks the frame. Sounds wild, but it's not the biggest problem. First of all, let the canvas dry up. You can take the canvas off from your broken frame and put it on a new one. If the frame didn't break here and your canvas just went up on one side, that means that the stretcher bars did bend, but they are not lost yet. Just take out the clips on the side that went up. Loose the canvas slightly and shoot new clips through it again. Well, if the stretcher bars are bent like a banana, they won't become even again. Our third and last bad case scenario. Something that can also happen every now and then is that you accidentally knock a little dent into your canvas. To fix it, you can apply water to the back of it and maybe rub it a bit in. It will stretch itself again. Alright, those should be the most common bad case scenarios. Whoa, this canvas looks perfect! But what am I going to paint on it now?